Hey team, Rob Bruss here with some unspoken truth. Now you might have heard that the US Navy has been using a transgender non-binary person, whatever that is, to spark recruitment numbers. For some reason, the powers that be think that showing the Navy has a culture of inclusion will get more people interested in the jobs that the Navy has available. The thing that the zombies from the left don't understand is that no matter what job you have or what workforce you're part of, there are gay people and trans people everywhere. I was in the Army and the Navy, and there were plenty of gay people. Some were openly gay, and others, they kept it to themselves. The point is, it doesn't matter if you work in a restaurant, a supermarket, an office, or on a bloody warship, your ability to do a job is never governed by what you prefer behind closed doors. But for some reason, the left-leaning zombies of upper management of the US Navy think that your sexual fantasies will determine whether you want to join up or not. Here's the unspoken truth and part of the reason why young people no longer want to serve in the military. And by the way, it's not just the US military that have a hard time with their recruiting numbers, it's across the board in all Western militaries. Now imagine if you're 17 or 18 and you're about to leave school, or you're thinking that a military job or service would be a good option. Reasonable pay, great training, lots of benefits, and it looks like a lot of fun. But then one day you switch on YouTube and you see that there's a withdrawal from Afghanistan underway. Being a younger person, you don't really understand the politics of it all. You just know that it might be cool to be one of those Marines or soldiers or airmen helping out those desperate people. Now fast forward a couple of days and you see babies being handed over barbed wire fences, people hanging on to cargo planes and falling off them, and suddenly a bomb goes off and kills a bunch of people desperate to get away from the Taliban. You'd be forgiven for thinking that it looks like hell on earth. Now fast forward a few more days and you realize that this is not a withdrawal, it's an evacuation of a defeated force that is not only leaving the people they came to help behind, but literally handing over billions of dollars worth of our equipment to the enemy. As you dig deeper, you discover that the rules of engagement allowed that suicide bomber to get through and to kill 13 servicemen and women, and you start to wonder, I thought those soldiers were there to kill the enemy. Aren't the Taliban the enemy? Why didn't we just kill them before they killed us? Simple, right? And why have we left all of that equipment behind? What on earth is going on? It quickly becomes apparent to you as the young person that this is an absolute disaster and the whole world is watching. You ask yourself, what was this all for anyway? Why did all of those people and all of our soldiers have to die in that awful place in the last 20 years? You also know that the war in Iraq was based on a lie, and that was an absolute disaster which gave us ISIS and more of our enemy, meaning Iran. Pretty quickly, you come to the conclusion that joining the military may not be such a good idea after all. Not because it's not a cool job, but because what you're going to be asked to do, or ordered to do, just doesn't align with your belief systems, and it's certainly not worth paying for any of that with your life. Here's some more unspoken truth for you, team. I lived in close quarters with my fellow sailors and on warships and in the bush with my fellow diggers for many years, and there's absolutely no problem with any part of military culture. In fact, military culture is amazing for a young person. It's one of the absolute best experiences you could ever hope to have. And it doesn't matter if you're straight or you're gay or you're something else. The job is accepting of all people from all walks of life. That's why we have the same haircuts and wear the same uniforms. It just doesn't matter where you're from. There's a reason for all of this, and it's simple. The mission is what comes first, and everything else takes a back seat. The massive failure of the zombified left is that they completely fail to recognize anything that I've just said, because the people from the left side of politics rarely serve. They're too scared to. They're afraid it won't align with their identities or their beliefs, but they're just wrong. They would be accepted and respected just like everybody else. That's the failure of the zombies on the left, and the thing that their undead brains cannot comprehend is that in the military, the people would actually love them for their differences. Another part of the unspoken truth of why the military recruiting numbers are so down across the world is because young people are much smarter than the zombies in charge would have you think. They look at the lies that the politicians tell, they look at the foolish leadership, the stupid decisions that are made day in and day out, and in less than 60 seconds, they could see that they'd be subjecting themselves to orders from these incompetent, stupid people that would potentially cost them their lives. The war in Iraq was based on a lie. The withdrawal from Afghanistan was the biggest embarrassment and disaster in US military history, and now we're in another war in Europe that's been cheered on by the warmongers in power that would never go near the front line. I bet you if you asked Joe Biden where the Donbass was, he couldn't point to it on a map. So what makes you think that a young person would ever join the military? It's easy for anyone with 2 eyes and 2 ears and a reasonably functioning brain to see that the people in charge are completely corrupt. Nancy Pelosi, who was the third in charge, made millions and millions of dollars on insider trading. Kamala Harris doesn't know her ass from her elbow, and when she's not creating new word salads for all of us to enjoy, she's being laughed at by literally everyone else on planet Earth. As we inch closer to the center of gravity, we could replace Mark Milley and Lloyd Austin with B1 and B2 and probably get a better result. We now know that Anthony Blinken was responsible for the 50 signatures from the intelligence chiefs that said the Hunter Biden laptop was fake, even though Hunter Biden himself came out and said the laptop might be his. Then we have the leader of the free world who's responsible for giving the orders to the military. Now imagine being a young private on the front line knowing that the orders to close with and destroy the Chinese military came from a group of corrupt liars led by a senile man in mental decline. Any person, young or old, can see all of this in plain sight. No person who spent just 10 minutes thinking about their future in the military would ever consider this to be a worthwhile job. So I ask you zombies on the left that want to be protected from the vicious enemies at your gate, which self-respecting adult considering a job in the military would ever think about putting themselves in harm's way for any prime minister or president in the name of freedom? You must be kidding me. The reason that the US military has a massive shortfall in their recruitment numbers is not because of a failure to accept different people into their ranks. They've always done that. Every military in history that has ever existed has done that. The benchwarmer zombies on the left don't know that because they've never played for their country. They expect the best and brightest of us who are not as educated as them to do it on their behalf so they can sip on their oat lattes and watch Netflix for 18 hours a week, all while tucking their dick between their legs, pretending to be something they're not. The unspoken truth and the real reason why the US militaries and militaries all around the world have a recruiting problem is because the left have set the conditions for World War III. A nuclear apocalypse, a war with China, Iran, North Korea and Russia, and no person with a brain in their head would ever put their life on the line for a zombie that thinks that he is a she or a she is a he and then go forth to die in the name of freedom. You idiots on the left are going to get us all killed.